Hey, Uncle Leon, how are you?
I'm finding you, Minister. Can you hear me, Minister?
I'm doing well. This is terrible.
Is my signal terrible?
No, I mean the heat wave. It's hot.
Yeah, it's hot.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. I'll come and visit your Northwest.
That's fine. Wait
Thank you.
I am trying to indicate that we are ready. We are ready, Honorable Shivambu.
Recording
So-
in progress. Recording stopped.
Now we'll start at the right time. Not now. Okay.
Yes, again.
Yabulela. Le ndoda iyasoyikisa le ivele ngaphambili. Ngoku I thought there's something wrong. At least, no, we'll start. It's just a number of seconds before we can start. And I think let's get started now.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
I welcome all members who have logged in to the visual mini-plenary session. There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. Honorable members, before we proceed, I would like to remind you that the visual mini-plenary is deemed to be in the precincts of Parliament and constitute a meeting of the National Assembly for debating purposes only. In addition to the rules of visual sittings, the rules of the National Assembly, including the rules of debate, apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Assembly. And members should equally note that anything said in the visual platform is deemed to have been said to the House and may be ruled upon. All members who have logged in shall be considered to be present and are requested to mute their microphones and only unmute when recognized to speak. This is because the mics are very sensitive and will pick up any noise which might disturb the attention of other members. When recognized to speak, please unmute your microphone, and where necessary, you can also switch on your video. And the Secretariat will alert me if there's any member who has raised a hand, and I will recognize such a person. When using the visual system, members are urged to refrain from unnecessary points of order or interjections. And lastly, I wish to remind you that we are meeting in a mini-plenary session, and therefore any decisions will be taken in a full plenary session of the Assembly. The first item on the agenda is a discussion in the name of Honorable Shivambu on water provision crisis in South Africa. Honorable Shivambu, floor is yours.
No, thank you very much, House Chairperson. So Section 27 of South Africa's Constitution guarantees everyone access to healthcare, food, water, and social security. Subsection 1B of Section 27 specifically emphasizes that everyone has the right to sufficient food and water. And in the parting sentence of the EFF's founding manifesto, the Cardinal Pillar number 1 emphasizes the importance of water provision that must be sustainable and guaranteed to all the people of South Africa and the entire African continent. This is for a simple reason that water is life, that the sustainability of human development depends on water, whether it is in the rivers, lakes, or in the form of rainfall. Water is essential for all living ecosystems. The fact that we as the EFF 10 years ago when we founded emphasized the centrality of water in a developmental project is testimony enough that we are the most reliable voice for the waterless people of South Africa. It is also the state's duty and obligation to provide clean water to all its citizens. The crisis of water provision in South Africa is a man-made crisis. It's not a result of some unforeseen natural disasters. There is absolutely no sense and no justification on why many areas where those who are subjects or those who are subject of apartheid capitalism where they live, they still do not have water. There is no reason, none whatsoever. The 2022 National State of Water Report acknowledges that part of the crisis provision in water in South Africa is that water infrastructure is aging and becoming dysfunctional. An aged infrastructure results in huge water losses and water supply backlogs. The National Water and Sanitation Master Plan acknowledges that South Africa might face a 17% water deficit by 2030. But it also acknowledges that 56% of the more than 1,000 municipal wastewater treatment works and approximately 44% of the 962 water treatment works in the country are in poor or critical condition and in need for urgent rehabilitation and skilled operators. And more than 11% of those are completely dysfunctional. 41% of municipalities do not generate revenue from water, and 35% is lost through leakages. This is despite the so many numerical commitments and indications that are given by the ruling party to say that there is water stability in South Africa. There isn't water stability in South Africa. We therefore take this opportunity as the economic freedom fighters to resonate the voices of the waterless communities, districts, municipalities, townships, informal settlements, and villages. We did so because everywhere we go, our people are complaining about access to water, and they correctly say that their voices are not heard and resonated in Parliament, despite the fact that this institution is supposed to express the interest of our people. We are therefore here as the EFF to resonate the cries of all the people of Utokela district in all the municipalities of Alfred Duma of Nkosi particularly the people of Hlatukulu in Nkosi Ward 11. We are here to resonate the cries of the people of Mhlaba Lingani, Ematshibini, in Jozini, in Tubatuba and Big Five Tlabesa, and Mkanyakude district who do not have water, despite the huge dam, Jozini Dam, which both the ANC and the IFP governments are failing to reticulate water from. We know that all the 61 wards of Mzinyathi district, Umsinga, Ngutu, Endumeni, Umvud, have got huge crisis of water, and there's no solution in sight that is going to bring water to the people of Mzinyathi district. We know that for more than 15 years, the people of Tumahole in Nwate municipality in Fezile-Dabi have no access to dependable and clean water. Despite the billions of rands that have been spent to take water from Anondini Dam, Kumaya Giyani Mati, Ameza Mafika Giyani Mati, it's more than 30 years now without reliable water supply at Giyani. We know that for more than 20 years now, all the villages that are bordering the Kruger National Park, in Collins Chabane municipality, in Musina municipality, in Tulamela municipalities, there is no water for our people. And this is a testimony that the entirety of Vembe region has got more than 110 areas of villages and townships that do not have water. In Waterberg, it's more than 31 areas that are affected, particularly in the Palale, Tabazimbi, and Mudumulu Mukhupu. In Sikukune, we've got more than 30 areas that do not have water. In Capricorn, we've got more than 40 areas that do not have water. We know that in the western high fields areas of Mpumalanga, in particularly Tembisile-Hani municipality, in Verena and Kwagafontein, in Matanjana and Dr. J.S. Morocco, there is no water for our people. We know that in the Eastern Cape, in the Muma municipality, there's a crisis of water. Sarah Bartman district is the most affected in terms of water crisis in the Eastern Cape, with the towns of Womansdorp, of Makana, former Grahamstown, Adu, Cookhouse in Blue Crane municipality, in Kocha, in Jeffreys Bay. There is no dependable supply of water. In O.R. Tambo district, in Mbizana, where Winnie Madikizela Mandela was born, where O.R. Tambo was born, there is no dependable supply of water in Mbizana, in Libod and Flagstaff, in Mnganduli, in Kumbu, in Tsomo, in Tsolo. There is no water supply. In the Northern Cape, the entirety of the John Tawule Haitsewa district does not have dependable supply of water. More than 200 areas do not have dependable supply of water in Katu, in Kanana, in Maruping, in Matibastad, The Northwest District of Dr. Ruth Sokomotsi Mompati does not have reliable supply of water. And Greater Taung is the most affected with more than 81 areas without supply of water. In Kagisano Molapo, there's more than 83 areas. In Moratele, there's more than 70 areas that do not have supply of water. We are speaking about all these areas because every time we interact with these communities, they say that we have been waterless for more than 15, 20, 30 years, and no one has raised our voices in the relevant platforms to say that we need water. And water is life. It's water that must be availed to everyone, and it is the obligation of the state. We want to take this opportunity as the economic freedom fighters to assure all communities that we have mentioned here and those that we have not mentioned that they have got a crisis of water, that the waterlessness that have defined them for many years will come to an end when the EFF takes government. We will, of course, start with the areas where already we have been exposed to government in the city of eThekwini, in the areas of Ntuzuma, Mzinyati informal settlement, not Mzinyati the district, Inanda, in Umlazi, in Kwamashu, in Hambanati, in all the affected areas. If the National Treasury stops with the childish and opportunistic withdrawal of grants allocated for water provision in eThekwini, will make the necessary and relevant progress in the provision of water for all the people of eThekwini. We'll also assure that all the people of Ekurhuleni, particularly in Okmo informal settlement, because it's a new informal settlement, are going to be given access to quality and drinkable water. What we want to assure the people of South Africa is that to have dependable supply of water, which must be priority for all municipalities, you need a competent, reliable government. And that government can only be the economic freedom fighters. We will prioritize water over everything else so that we've got sustainable life to provide to our people. It is our obligation as the state, as government, to provide water. The statistics that are being brandished about access to water are false. There are so many areas. If we were to go each and every area that has got water crisis in South Africa, it will take us the whole day. So we're here to resonate the voices of our people and assure our people that come 2024, the economic freedom fighters, the economic emancipation movement will start with a program which is going to provide 100% dependable water supply to all our communities. Thank you very much, Chair.
Honorable Shivambu. The next speaker is from the ANC, Honorable Deputy Minister Mahlobo.
Thank you very much, Mkwati, and to all the members here in the plenary. One of the best revolutionaries would have said, tell no lies, claim no easy victories, do not mask our difficulties. The ANC-led government over the last 29 years has been at the center to redress the imbalances of the past, wherein South Africans were denied access to water, including the economic and social, environmental, and cultural benefits to water. As the ANC-led government were to address that point, where we're to roll out infrastructure to many of those that were denied. As we speak, 90% of South Africans have access to water in terms of our latest departmental statistics, apart from the support statistics that have been given by States SA. Nobody can deny that the burden that was actually given to women that had to walk long distances and the girl children that were denied the right to go to school and participate in all these other economic activities. The ANC has reversed that. Nobody can deny the fact that access to water has improved the issues of removing the burden of diseases like waterborne diseases, hunger, and poverty. Our country remains a water-scarce country, but as the ANC, we want to assure South Africans that our water balance in terms of the existing demand and on a national scale, we don't have a problem of water scarcity. But we must admit, Chairperson, that there are localized deficits on the basis of climate change, like we have seen in Nelson Mandela and some parts of Gauteng, where there's been an increased demand on the basis that the Lesotho Highlands Water Project was delayed. We must indicate, Chairperson, that the ANC-led government, to ensure that we don't run out of water on the basis that our economy and our population is growing, we've been in a position to unlock many of the major infrastructure projects that were delayed in our own country. We also know that South Africans, that in as much as we might not run out of water, but there is a deterioration of water quality on the basis of human activities, whether it is industrial, whether it is domestic use, that impacts on water quality. Then there are issues around municipal distribution system, the issues of water losses, then the impact of climate change. Most of the delays around the implementation of water supply development projects have been unlocked. We can make an example, for an example, that the situation that you had of Lesotho Highlands Phase 2, that to supply Gauteng and other neighboring provinces, that is costing 40 billion rands. His Excellency President Ramaphosa has been into the Kingdom of Lesotho, soil turning has been done, and that project has been unlocked. But in the meantime, Gauteng does not have a problem of the availability of water, but we do have the problem of the supply in terms of the system and the issues around consumers. And we've been in a position to address those issues working with municipalities. And Fighter Shivambu, you will know that he can't throw stones because some of these MMCs he's talking about, they are from the EFF. And we are the ones who are the Minister of Water that is helping them to address these issues. That's why in the last close to 2 months in Gauteng, most of the reservoirs in Kwati, they are actually at a healthy state. The challenges of water in KwaZulu-Natal in terms of water security, Nkomo's water project, that will unlock a number of economic opportunities for 5 districts, including eThekwini at 26 billion. We've finalized all the offtake agreements. We are working with the TCTA and going to the markets to ensure that the people of KwaZulu-Natal, they don't have problem with water. We're also intervening in Mkhanyakude, Fighter Flood, where you could see that Mkhanyakude Jozini Dam, that was a single-purpose dam, now is a multi-purpose dam, and infrastructure is already on the ground. Umngeni Uthukela is working with Mkhanyakude. We're also working with Zululand to deal with the scheme there. eThekwini, you will know, we are helping eThekwini around your wastewater systems. And 10 of them, there is an agreement that more than 2/3 of the wastewater systems will be managed by our water boards because our water boards have capacity. And we're deploying them at the services of these municipalities because nobody will be left by the ANC government behind. You go to the northwest, we do have Bulela Metsi, and we've put resources. A main project like Umkolo Crocodile West system that has been delayed for a number of years. We can indicate that contractors are on the ground now. In terms of the budget facility, 4 billion rand has been made available to ensure that those mining communities, until Lepalale, they do have access to water. People of Sekhukhune, until Peter Mokaba region, and they're going to Waterberg. The Olifants River Water Resource Development, where you take water from the Duop Dam, working with private sector as we speak right now. We've done all the agreements. There is going to be an offtake. There is no community where our water infrastructure will pass through, and those communities will be denied access to water. Therefore, we're hard at work. Let's not tell lies that we're not working. You go to the Northern Cape, in terms of the support of municipalities working with private sector, we do have the Valga Mahara in the Northern Cape, Now we're on phase 2. 10 billion rand has been mobilized so that we don't have problems of access to water. You go to the Eastern Cape, Zimvubu now is back on track. All the necessary infrastructure in terms of access to the facility, including the confirmation of funds, 8 billion rand billing of that in Tabelangi Dam. You go to Limpopo again around Tzanini, especially where you come from. That is Tzanini in terms of the tower water augmentation costing $500 million. And the upgrade of that particular dam is happening. Around the communities of Giyani, let's tell no lies. Those communities in the meantime are being supplied with water in terms of groundwater that is there, but also the intermittent supply. We can confirm that water has moved from Nandoni to Nzami. You go to the village of Homu as we speak right now. They have started to have water in their own homes. And more than 24 villages, by December this time around, they will have water. In your own area, Fighter Shivambu, you have going to have that pipeline of clean water to Malamulela coming from Nandoni is going to be in a position to supply water. There are many of these communities, whether Capricorn, whether KwaZulu-Natal, in Mpumalanga and Limpopo in Sekhukhune. You know that in the Loskop Dam, we have invested more than 1.2 billion rand to ensure that the communities around Elias Mutwaleti, Thembisile and JS Moroka, they do have water. In the Western Cape too, we are hard at work around the Back River Fault Augmentation Scheme, wherein 1.2 billion rand, and the work has started. Recently, our minister was down in the Clan Williams Dam so that we can unlock that particular community. The issues around green drop and brood drop, these are not new issues. They were raised by the ANC government because the wastewater systems, our municipalities must be helped. Whether the municipalities are run by the ANC, EFF, or IFP, all our municipalities are struggling with wastewater system. You can look at Tshwane, look at City of Cape Town, Mfuleni, Tegwini. That's why in all those municipalities, we are intervening. This government of the ANC has put money because infrastructure is the bedrock of our work. Already this financial year, 61.7 billion rand is being put aside to support municipalities, and many municipalities are addressing the issues of water losses. We can indicate that one of the challenges we face is the issue of the sustainability of the sector, the issues of the escalating debt. Those South Africans who can afford to pay, they must pay for water and other services, including you as public representative. But those South Africans that are poor and vulnerable, the ANC government has provided a social security. We do have free basic water, and South Africans must use it. It's part of the equitable share. But we must know that water is a finite resource. We can't just use water in an irresponsible way. We are supporting all the municipalities all over the country. There are intervention plans for each province. At the very same time, we are ensuring that working through the district development model, we do have the plans of the deployment of engineers, helping them to plan so that they can have business plans. They do have the technical report and feasibility studies, and the response by local government over the last 29 years. They have been at the center of dealing with some of these issues. As I conclude, the water board chair are there to support our municipalities, and the ANC will not leave anybody behind. Mkwati will deliver decent water and sanitation.
Deputy Minister, thank you very much. The next speaker is Honorable Person from DA.
Chairperson, if you think load shedding is bad, water shedding is far worse. Elke dag hoor ons van stede en dorpe in Gauteng wat dae sonder water is. In ander dele van ons land loop krane droog. Rustenburg, Lichtenburg, Mangaung en baie ander dorpe reg oor Suid-Afrika is ook sonder water. Dit is nie net onmenslik nie, maar hou ook gesondheidsrisiko's in vir mens en dier. Fresh drinking water is decreasing in quality because of the increase in pollution, with more than 4,200 million liters of untreated or inadequately treated sewage illegally discharged into 82% of our rivers and streams every single day. And the culprits? Corrupt ANC municipalities with a license to kill the environment. En wat doen die ANC regering hieroor? Absoluut niks. Access to secure, safe and sufficient source of fresh drinking water is a fundamental requirement for the survival, the well-being and socio-economic development of all humanity. Yet, government continues to act as if fresh water is an everlasting resource. Well, it's not. National government is the custodian of water resources on behalf of South Africans, and government act through the minister to fulfill this constitutional mandate. As die minister en die departement vir water en sanitasie nie gaan optree om besoedelaars te stop, om ons waterbronne te besoedel nie, is die minister net so skuldig as diegene wat ons waterbronne besoedel. Chairperson, it's common knowledge that South Africa is a water-scarce country, and therefore the lack of infrastructure maintenance and the failure of infrastructure is a major contributor to our water crisis. Currently, more than 20% of the rural population lack access to a reliable water supply, and over 26% of all urban and rural schools and 45% of clinics have no water access. South Africa must become water wise, and government must create public awareness of the reality of the effect of climate change. We must use less water. Stad Kaapstad en sy inwoners is die eerste ter wêreld wat daarin kon slaag om 'n waterverbruik met meer as 50% te verminder in slegs 3 jaar. While Cape Town and the Greater Western Cape managed to narrow down water usage to prevent a disaster, danger still looms for the rest of South Africa, reaching day zero. The country's non-revenue water loss averaged at 41%, with individual municipalities as high as 70%. Non-revenue water is costing us more than 10 billion rand per year. Dit terwyl stad Kaapstad hul waterverliese afgebring het na 17% en spaar miljoene liters water elke dag. Current and future infrastructure projects are also at risk, with municipalities that owns water boards over 15 billion, and municipalities and their water boards in turn owe the Department of Water and Sanitation close to 20 billion rand. Dit is baie duidelik dat die ANC regering die bal laat val het om 'n grondwetlike mandaat na te kom. Chairperson, this ANC government is failing South Africa, with millions of people struggling without water because of poor infrastructure, corruption, and the mismanagement of our water resources. In conclusion, South Africa, the change is in your hands. Vote this useless, corrupt ANC out of government next year and vote in a DA-led government that rescue South Africa. I thank you.
The next speaker would be from IFP. The next, yes.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. It has been almost 30 years since the first promise of a better life for all, and yet the government has failed dismally to provide one of the most basic human rights to its citizens, which is access to clean potable water. There are people who still do not have access to water due to collapsed water infrastructure, whilst some communities do not have water infrastructure at all. This means that their only source of water is through water tankers, which only come once a week, a classical example being the Umkhanyakude district municipality in KZN. I would be doing the people of this country a huge disservice if I did not ask the crucial and pertinent question of how many dams has the current government built. Our country is riddled with poor and underfunded catchment planning and management, which is perhaps a telltale that our government is in the dark when it comes to the dire effects of water insecurity that will plague this country. Currently, the government's efforts stand minuscule to the needs and demands of the country, both presently and in the future. Unfortunately, there is no hope for this crisis to be resolved, as almost 6% of the municipal conditional grants have been cut by the National Treasury. While climate change contributes to the crisis, poor planning and inaction remain the biggest culprits. Already strained reservoirs lie abandoned and at best unmaintained, which inevitably compromises our storage capacity. Additionally, an equitable share of water services has never been equitable at all. And if we confront aging water infrastructure and water provision backlogs. On the other hand, water boards such as Umgeni charge municipalities exorbitant tariffs while indigent communities are increasing. As a result, water boards make a lot of profit at the expense of municipalities' capacity to provide water, which in turn fuels the water crisis. Sadly, water-intensive industries that serve as the backbone of employment in the country will come under threat due to foreseeable water rationing, a tune that has been sung and ignored since the early 2000s. Worsening and unpredictable climate change is precisely why we need proper planning for the dry years, a possibility that the government remains blind to. Honorable Chairperson, instead of facing the water crisis head on, the government often funds campaigns to encourage people to save water. But it is an impossible task to attempt to save something that is not there. I thank you.
Honorable. The next speaker is Honorable May from FF Plus.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm not going to make use of my video. I've got a problem. Die mens kan ook sonder elektrisiteit oorleef, maar nie sonder water nie. Die watersituasie in Suid-Afrika is 'n baie groter krisis as kom en kan tot gevolg hê dat miljoene mense as gevolg van honger en dors sterf. Die ANC-regering ignoreer die waterkrisis en is totaal onbevoeg om die ramp te voorkom. Die Griekse mitologie vertel van koning Midas wat alles waarna hy raak aan goud laat verander. Met Suid-Afrika en die ANC is dit net die teenoorgestelde. Alles waarna hy raak gaan ten gronde. Ons het sopas gesien dat by die hawe Suid-Afrikaanse hawens wat besig is om ineen te stort en die ekonomie te verswak. Terwyl 'n reuse uitdagings oor waterverskaffing die regering die afgelope dekades in die gesig gestaar het, het hy skaars daarin geslaag om enkele krane in agtergeblewe gemeenskappe te installeer. Van die bestuur van bestaande waterbronne, instandhouding en toekomsbeplanning was daar weinig sprake. Vandag het 'n krisis ontaard wat soos krag en elke ander probleem in die land nie langer weggeredeneer kan word nie. Die ANC-koning is nakend. Die gewaande kleed van apartheid wat al sy gebreke moes bedek, bestaan nie meer nie. Om sake te vererger het faktore soos bevolkingsgroei, verstedeling, klimaatsverandering, groeiende druk op waterinfrastruktuur geplaas. Intussen het die probleem 'n krisis geraak en die krisis stuur af op 'n ramp. Die ANC is bloot te onbeholpe om iets aan te doen. Wanbestuur en korrupsie binne die watersektor, die regering se enkele pogings om die krisis te pak ondermyn. Hiermee saam met erge droogtes oor die laaste jare groot druk op bestaande waterbronne geplaas, terwyl die skaarse bronne toenemend besoedel word, weer eens vanweë 'n onbevoegde regering. Klimaatsverandering vererger hierdie kwessie en droogte sal net meer gereeld en intenser raak in die afsienbare toekoms. Die gebrek aan behoorlike infrastruktuur vir waterberging, asook die behandeling en verspreiding van water dra by tot die krisis. Verouderde pype, lekkasies, onvoldoende bergingsgeriewe lei tot 35% waterverliese. Die vinnige bevolkingsgroei en verstedeliking plaas geweldige druk op bestaande waterbronne en infrastruktuur. Die verhoogde vraag na water oorskry toenemend die aanbod en die water raak letterlik op. Ons het dit sopas in die Oos-Kaap beleef. Die gevolge hiervan is reeds duidelik. Een daarvan is gesondheidsrisiko van wateroordraagbare siektes soos kolera en diarree. Die ekonomiese impak van water te begin ook duidelik wys by nywerhede, landbou en toerisme, want dit is sterk van water afhanklik. Die moontlike oplossings is voor die hand liggend. Beplanning rondom infrastruktuurontwikkeling en instandhouding is die wese daarvan. Waterbesparing moet aangemoedig word en alternatiewe waterbronne soos ontsouting, reënwater en afvalwaterbehandeling moet ontsluit word. Bogenoemde beklem die behoefte aan beter bestuur en beplanning om volhoubare waterbestuur in Suid-Afrika te verseker. Die kort en langtermyn oplossing in Suid-Afrika is die onmiddellike oprigting van watertanks by bestaande huise en alle nuwe blou planne moet voorsiening maak vir die oprigting van watertanks. Die Vryheidsfront pleit 2019 by die regering om dringend aandag te gee, maar geen poging is nog aangewend om dit te doen nie. Volgens waterkenners behoort inwoners in sekere gebiede van Suid-Afrika, soos byvoorbeeld Johannesburg en Pretoria, as gevolg van watertanks onafhanklik te wees van watervoorsiening deur munisipaliteite weens die goeie reënval. Die oprigting van watertanks was 70 jaar gelede die antwoord om waterskaarste te voorkom en sal in die toekoms dieselfde doel dien. Miljarde was tydens die COVID-19 pandemie bestee. Waarom kan die regering nie nou al begin om te belê in watertanks nie? Miljoene mense in Suid-Afrika beskik nie oor die finansiële vermoë om watertank te koop en op te rig nie, en sal die regering die voorsiener moet wees. Voorsitter, ek luister na die adjunkminister wat praat van hoe baie hulle doen. In Port Elizabeth en die Oos-Kaap waar sopas 'n waterkrisis beleef het, die nooit gedagte waterskema fase 3 is seker 3, 4, 5 jaar later voltooi moet.
Your time is up,
Maar,
remember.
Dankie. Die beste voorstelle moontlik om die probleme op te los sal egter niks met leekteken solank die ANC aan bewind is nie. Baie dankie, voorstel.
Thank you. The next speaker would be UDM, ATM. Good. The ANC, Honorable Matuba.
Good morning to all members of the parliament. Honorable members, no one can dispute the fact that the ANC-led government has since 1994 implemented massive water infrastructure across the country, amounting to billions of rands. The rolling out of this important water infrastructure by our democratic government is done to progressively realize the right to access to safe, clean drinking water, especially by the historically disadvantaged population, Blacks in general and Africans in particular, with women, the elderly and children as the government priorities. The democratic government has delivered water infrastructure for the benefit of the receiving communities. However, what has been lacking is the communities taking ownership of and protection of this important infrastructure to ensure that there is a constant water provisioning by the state service authorities. Gone were those days when communities saw any government property or infrastructure to be vandalized and demolished because of the communities did not recognize the government of the day. Communities must be made to understand that today's government is a government for the people and by the people, and government property is community property. There's also a need to foster a culture of payment for water services rendered to guarantee consistent water provision maintenance. Honorable Chairperson, it is the fact that post-1994 ANC government inherited a racial system where most of Black South Africans were not provided with access to basic municipal services such as water, sanitation, refuse recollection, and electricity. It is a fact that before 1994, the Black population in South Africa suffered, therefore, under a double deprivation in relation to water. Lack of water services was compounded by a lack of access to water for economic purposes, including irrigated agriculture. It is a fact that by the time of the elections in 1994, at least 12 million South Africans did not have access to potable water. The majority of marginalized were Blacks. Water law reforms in South Africa as a result of historic elections of 1994. The above stated facts, not opinions. Thanks to the people of South Africa for voting the ANC to power and giving the ANC the mandate to redress the imbalance of the past. Honorable House Chair, according to the 2018 stats report, South Africa's 257 municipalities are owed more than 72.4 billion by households and businesses for services rendered. This is a sizable sum of money that if households and businesses can pay it, will ensure the sustainability and financial viability of water services authorities. Water services authorities would be in a better position to plan and budget for maintenance, repair and refurbishment of old broken water infrastructure. Improving communication between communities and water services authorities, honorable member. If all of us here agree that water is life, in other words, access to safe, clean drinking water should always be available every day and every hour. And then when there is no water, communities should be informed accordingly. Gantsi re hlola re bua le ka di-language tse communities tsa rona ba sa tlhaloganyeng gore re bua ka tsona, re bua jakono o tsamaisa molaetsa o botlhokwa ba gore metsi a tla ba le siko nako mang neneng ho etsahalang. Ke nagana gore ha parlamente ya Afrika Borwa le bo masepala bohle ba re ba eteletseng ko pele ba ka kgona go bolela le di-communities tsa rona ka communication e leng very clear gore na re tshwanetse gore re tsebe gore dinako tse metsi a leng teng ke nako mang, nako tse re tshwantseng re traine re save metsi ke nako mang, hobane ha o sheba dipalopalo di a bontsha gore number e ngata ya ma-Afrika Borwa ba sebedisa metsi ka tsela e sa nepahalang. Re more than 5 times more than any other country who sa sebedise metsi ya rona sentle. And hape we call for the water services authorities to use just a simple language and encourage all water service authorities to use all forms of communications that are effective, efficient, and available in various communities. Honorable House Chairperson, our democratic system is based on representation and participation in democratic processes, where communities not only elect representatives, but also participate directly in how services are rendered. Participation is an important legacy of our liberation struggle captured in Injunction, people's power through alternative structures. However, most of the time, many government structures tend to emphasize representation over community participation. Across the country, we have witnessed a growth in the number of crime-fighting forums, commonly referred to as anti-crime community forums, which work independently of the SAPs. Our communities use both the anti-crime system and SAPs to report instances of criminality in their areas. We must therefore encourage and foster good working relations between community forums, the water service authorities, and the South African police services to address the scourge of vandalism and theft of water infrastructure, which inhibits constant water provision to our communities. Honorable members, we must ensure that there's synergy between community structures and our government in fighting for the scourge of vandalism and theft of water infrastructure. Honorable Chairperson, the ANC-led government has created over 1 million job opportunities through Community Works Program and Extended Public Works Program with the purpose of ensuring that we have clean, conducive and healthy living environments. As this is an important task, our government has to explore ways to train and empower these massive workforce to attend to water infrastructure challenges to supplement the Water Service Authority workforce. In fact, the Department of Water and Sanitation has to engage with SALGA and the Energy and Water Sector Education Training Authority to make funds available to train some of the participants in both the CWP and EPWP with the necessary skills to become the first respondents to water leaks while waiting for Water Service Authority employees who are professionals in their work so as to avoid and reduce water losses and ensure the water provisioning is sustainable and conserved for future generation. Honorable Chairperson, as the African National Congress, we are the first to publicly admit that water losses are a result of water leaks and that we have called for an urgent intervention by all stakeholders in the water sector. The impact of water leaks is not only social, but also has an economic aspect as well. Water leaks have resulted in some communities not having reliable access to safe, clean drinking water for a number of days in the year. The training and the empowerment of the CWP and EPWP to be first respondents in instances of water leaks is one of intervention among others. Honorable Chairperson, in our deliberations in the Portfolio Committee, we have recommended to the department encouraging water service authorities to utilize young people that participated in War on Leaks program as an additional human resource, and this can be funded through either the Presidential Youth Fund Stimulus Package or through the Social Employment Fund. In the past, we have called on Department of Water and Sanitation to also encourage water services authorities to cooperate and collaborate with further education and training colleges that specializes in training artisans for the transfer of skills. Honorable members, we are confident that through these various interventions, we'll be able to address the so-called water provision. In conclusion, Chairperson, with a high level of humility, as a member of the ANC, I hope that South Africans will use this opportunity to ensure that they vote in their numbers and vote for the caring government, which is the African National Congress. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker would be from the AIC. Hope, PAC. The next speaker, Honorable Moore, is making a maiden speech. Welcome, Honorable Moore from the DA.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable members, I rise to speak on the continuing water crisis in my home province, Gauteng, and how it is indicative of South Africa's growing water crisis. Honorable members, it is long overdue that we pay heed to this serious issue, which quite literally threatens the lives of South Africans. South Africa is a young and growing country. For instance, Gauteng's population has grown from around 12 million in 2011 to over 15 million today. Rand Water, Gauteng's main bulk water supplier, also provides water to Mpumalanga, the Northwest, and the Free State, as it aims to cater to 18 million residents. A fast-growing population also requires that the water supply grows to match its pace. In Gauteng, however, due to ANC failure, we have the opposite. I have been muted, Chair.
It's Honorable Shivambu. I was asking him to mute, and Honorable from the ANC, Ngwank or Ngwanya. Can you speak on, please? We are disturbing the speaker. This is his maiden speech, please. Continue, Honorable Moore.
A fast-growing population also requires the water supply grows to match its pace. In Gauteng, however, due to ANC failure, we have the opposite. Bulk water provision has barely grown in the past decade, with projects to enable additional production being plagued by poor governance. And to make matters worse, there has been a systemic failure at the municipal level to maintain water infrastructure, particularly, but not limited to, water reticulation piping. This has led to a massive increase in water leaks in cities and towns across the province, with the average amount of losses reported by the Department of Water and Sanitation being 35%. This figure excludes water stolen from the system or lost due to the other non-technical issues. So what does this mean? Rand Water supplies 4 of the 9 provinces and produces a reported and optimistic average of 4,906 megalitres of water each day. Of this, Rand Water loses around 6%, or 329 megalitres per day due to leakages, before it reaches provinces and local governments. Local governments then lose 35% of that water to physical losses, leaving only 2,975 megalitres per day to actually reach South Africans on the ground. Of almost 5,000 megalitres produced for South Africans, only around 3,000 reaches them, a loss of 40%. This is a shocking governance failure by the ANC. While indeed South Africa is a water-scarce country, this government is irresponsible with the water it has. Honourable members, while the ANC scapegoats its failures, those are the facts. As 40% of water is wasted, this also means that government loses revenue needed for service delivery. This is a systemic threat across the country. For example, the city of Johannesburg still needs to pay Rand Water, regardless of whether its water is used or wasted. When Joburg loses so much water, it loses revenue and cannot maintain its local infrastructure or pay Rand Water. When Rand Water is not paid, this not only threatens Gauteng, but also the residents of Mpumalanga, the Northwest, and the Free State, a total of 18 million South Africans. When Rand Water loses money, it cannot pay the department, and this threatens the entire country. This downward spiral is a trend replicated across South Africa from eThekwini, Govan Mbeki, Rustenburg, and Mangaung. My colleague, Honourable Basson, has spoken more eloquently than I on the seriousness of this national crisis, but like Eskom, we must highlight the warning signs. The ANC did not act swiftly enough on electricity, and now they do the same with water. As we currently sit in the dark with load shedding, the electricity crisis significantly threatens our economy. However, this impending water crisis is a direct threat to the very lives of South Africans. As the department has already admitted in its master plan, water demand will exceed available supply before 2030. Put plainly, South Africa is running out of water. The lives of South Africans are at risk, and it will be the fault of the ANC. Water is a human right and a basic requirement of life. As this ANC government continues to fail to stabilize water supply, communities across South Africa have descended into chaos. Given delays in key water projects like the Lesotho Highlands project, which has been delayed by the alleged political interference of past ANC ministers, chaos due to water outages will be the new normal. South Africans should have no confidence that the ANC can fix the messes that it creates. Fortunately, next year, South Africans have the opportunity for change. South Africans can choose a government that can fix the water crisis, a government that will never allow South Africa to reach day zero. Voters must choose a DA-led government to rescue South Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Honorable Mashiho from the ANC.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning to everybody in the meeting. I'm struggling to get my picture. Unfortunately, I will not avail myself there. Chairperson, fact must never be changed for politicking. It is not true that the declaration of water as life and sanitation as dignity came into the fore through the birth of a party called EFF 10 years ago. You can go back to 1913 to 1948, 1955. You will find that history of water being declared life and sanitation declared dignity, therefore water supply being the key to life. It is not necessarily through the birth of the EFF that becomes an issue. Chairperson, look here, Giyani, vanhu va le Giyani va swi tiva ku loko hi fika Giyani hi kume ku not Giyani only, Mopani, Vhembe, Malamulele, Homu A, Homu B, and Xikokwani and all areas. Mati a ma nga ri kona kambe damu ra Nandoni ri phuphuma hi mati. Hi ri mfumo wa ANC hi fika hi kuma ku a swi kahle sweswo hikwalaho ke hi ya vulavurisana na tihosi na vanhu na tilidara ta matiko ku a hi tekeni mati la Nandoni hi ma yisa evanhwini lava ka va nga ri na mati. Vanhu va Nandoni, Mopani and areas a va zanga va ala na wona mati va pfumela kambe va ku na hina hi kombela ku hi makuma ma nga hundzi ma ya Giyani hina hi nga ri na wona. Hikwalaho ke hi endle sweswo, Mopani va na mati, ti-area ta Venda ti na mati, Giyani ku fika ka vaPhalavurwa hi loko va nyikeni ka mati. Va swi tiva vanhu va le Giyani ku
the blood is a sign, no mental illness shall come.
Honorable Mo, please unmute. Continue, Honorable Masha.
A swi tiva vanhu va le Giyani ku ri hi ended canal, open canal leyi rhwalaka mati kusuka eNandoni ku ya eNsame Dam hi ku mati ya le Nsame Dam a ma nga swi koti ku pompeka ma ya Giyani ku a ma ri matsongo. Hikwalaho ke ku pfuriwe canal, 40 kilometers of canal work that isukaka eNandoni Dam ku ya fika eNsame Dam. Yi open, of course, ina ti-challenges ta yo tihomu ta wela vanhu lava wela hi ta swi lunghisa kambe mati 12 million megawatts of water per day maya eNsame Dam ivi ma tekiwa Nsame Dam ma yisiwa etindhawini to hambanahambana ka Xikokwani, Homu, Giyani and the likes. Yes, kwana ha ri ku akeni hi ku reticulation vo masipala ha swi tiva ku a va na matimba ngopfu na mali ya ku va na ti-engineer letikulu. Hikwalaho ke hi va pfunaka hi ri department ku ri hi va akisa infrastructure ya ku supply mati. I Homu va ta pfulela mati ku nga ri kahle sweswi hi ku hi karhi hi supply hi te 24 villages ta kona i 57 villages la Giyani. 24 hi ta ti nyika Mopani, the others ti ta tirhiwa hi ti-local government na hina government hi pfuna ku ri vanhu va kuma mati. Swi nga khohliswa sikutiwa kune informal settlement ebizwa i-Okmo. I-Okmo is an illegal occupation of land by EFF. A hi settlement, illegal occupation. Akuna manzi, akuna toilet, akuko gesi. Abantu bahlaliswe esigangeni EFF or responsible MMC wakona who are just giving people land even if kungana infrastructure. Bese athi makube ne-infrastructure ngokushesha. Uyazwa MMC ukuthi akukho budget yokufaka amanzi lapha, akukho budget yokufaka ugesi. Ngihlala khona kulweni mina, I know. So Honorable Shivambu can't come here and want to politic about Okmo. I am busy in settlement because it is an illegal occupation of land, private owned land, where we are affecting the businesses that are there in that area of Okmo. Honorable Bason, I think whilst we must agree with you that water is being ill-treated, but these areas that you're talking about, they are not ANC run. Hamas Kral is your mayor Brink, and it was your mayors before Brink come, and we have now settled that we must help you because the DA run Swane is failing to give people water. You can't say it is ANC corrupt officials because it is your officials as led by Mayor Brink who is failing to give people of Swane water. In actual fact, there was a crisis in Hammanskraal, you know, up until we intervened. So it can't be correct that you want to blame it to the ANC corrupt officials. The IFP has been in power in KZN not only 30 years ago. Since 1975, when the IFP was born, was in power in KZN. If they have not given water to people 40, 50 years ago that they've been in power, why must people believe that in 30 years' time they could do better? The ANC can only be the party that can give water to people, and people of KZN knows that. There is a party called Freedom Front Plus, which is here represented by Honorable May. This is the biggest party that is not giving our people water, because they claim to have so-called water rights. And in that water rights, there are farm workers who are employed by them, but they don't want to share that water with them. In actual fact, they deny them that water in the likes of them having rights. And those rights for the people of South Africa must know they were given racially to white, male, African-speaking Afrikaners only. You cannot get that water rights being owned by white English-speaking or female Afrikaner-speaking. It is white, male, African-speaking people who are refusing our people access to water. They better share that water with animals and trees as compared to sharing it with our black people who are working for them and helping them to make money. So it must never be thought of by anyone that Honorable May, when he says he wants to give people water, he means it. The opposite is true. He wants to preserve water to only Afrikaners who are African-speaking, and that only. Honorable, and I'm sure we shall know that the city of Johannesburg, Honorable Mo, it is the city that has been run by the DA and the collusions and so forth and so on. So for you to want to believe that only the ANC corrupt officials and the TA one, where you've just removed your mayor, it must not be looked like that. It is incorrect. Honorable Chair, the ANC, with all these problems, we have realized that the boards that we have in the water boards were too silo planning, there were too many, inefficient, ineffective. It is for that reason that the minister, Mr. Honorable Nkunu, has streamlined all those boards. We have now only 9 water boards because we've got 9 provinces. They are province-orientated, very efficient, very effective, very simple to oversight. Through that process, I'm sure the ANC must be given the responsibility to oversight those 9 boards in order for us to give water to our people who are looking for water. It is not necessarily true that there is crisis of water in South Africa. There is crisis of management of water through municipalities that does not have capacity, municipalities that does not have a revenue base, therefore not able to retain their very, very efficient workers because you must pay them a salary. The salaries are not enough because they do not have money. Their revenue base is eroded, and therefore the people are going for greener pastures and the municipalities are struggling to sustain them. It is for that reason that the Department of Water and Sanitation, as led by Honorable Nkunu, is now getting in through Section 63 to Section 154, also even through Section 139, to help municipalities. That those interventions are not punitive. It is interventions that seeks to want to help municipalities to do better where they can't, not because of their own making, because there is no revenue that gives them that. Of course, too many water is lost, plus minus 40% of water that we are supposed to supply is lost through water leaks, through unsustained infrastructure that is decaying. Of course, there is also this thing called construction mafias, who are, and when you build infrastructure, they go and break it because they want to supply water using their water tanks and so forth. And it is incorrect to believe that each and every water tanker is an ANC official, because we can tell you that we have seen most of them, they are not politically inclined. They are just thugs and criminals who are preying on the municipalities that are very ineffective. It is for that reason that we want to implore the Minister of Water and Sanitation to continue the intervention he's making in order for the ANC to keep on helping the people of South Africa to have water. The ANC shall always be on the side of the people, and South African, please, come 2024, there is one party we think you must vote. We want to wish you vote. We want to implore you to vote. That party is the African National Congress. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mashego. The last speaker is Honorable Shivambu from the EFF. Over to you.
No, thank you very much, Chair. So the perspective by Amilcar Cabral, which was selectively quoted by the Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation, reads in full that hide nothing from the masses of our people. Tell no lies, expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victories. The self-praise and the premature celebrations by the speakers, particularly from the ruling party, is hiding everything from the people. The simple fact is that the ruling party does not have the political, ideological, technical, mechanical, and moral capacity and willingness to resolve South Africa's water crisis. We have a deep water crisis in South Africa, and the ruling ANC have had 30 years. 30 years is too long a period to fail to provide a basic right, a basic necessity, such as water. To come here and mention billions that has been allocated without water, it's meaningless. It means absolutely nothing. 30 years of failure to provide water to all the areas is a dismal failure, and the ruling party must be able to accept that. There are people who are adults now who were born 30 years ago. Some are married with children, but we still have a government that has, in 30 years' time, has failed to provide water to our people. And you come here to justify that there is water to all the communities, there's project, that project, there. There is no such a thing that is giving water to our people. People have been without water for 10 years, for 20 years, for 30 years. And at the pace that we are moving now, there are so many areas that are still not going to have water. If we then were to gauge the ruling party in terms of the delivery of water, there are areas which are still going to not have water in 50 years, in 60 years' time, because that is the manner in which you have handled these issues. Now, here are the facts. There is not a single drop of water that is provided to the people of Guyana that is coming from Nandoni currently. There is promises and false promises that is being given that now. It's groundwater which is not even dependable. It is not properly reticulated. It is not properly sanitized to could become potable and clean water for majority of these 24 villages that we are claiming. It's a reality that we are dealing with. In relation to the western part of Malamulele in Collins Chabane municipality, it's not just the lack of water. There's not even a project that is running now. There's not even piped water or an attempt to pipe water to the western part of Malamulele. And if what we have been doing in the distance, which is less than 45 kilometers from Nandoni Dam to Nsami Dam, if that is the pace that you're going through, it means that to move from Nandoni to the borders of the Kruger National Park will take you another 30 years, because that is the pace that you have been going through. And this is definitive of almost all areas in northern KwaZulu-Natal. The Zululand district, there's a huge dam of Jozini in Umkhanyakud. But majority, if not all the areas in that particular district of our country do not have water. Abakulusi doesn't have dependable supply of water. Nongoma doesn't have supply of water. Ulundi doesn't have supply of water. Edumbe doesn't have supply of water. This also applies to Umzumkulu, Buhlebezwe, Greater Kokstad in Herugwala district, in Mandane, in Ndwendwe, in Kwadukuza. In Umzumbe, Mhlomnyama doesn't have water in KwaZulu-Natal. And despite all these realities, you come here to claim easy victories. You come here to tell lies. You come here to hide everything to our people. You are basically, it's desperate. If you are failing to do something, just admit that you cannot do this thing. 30 years is too long a period who could not deliver water to our people. And it is the most vulnerable of society that suffered from this neglect. The elderly, the disabled, the children, those who are sick at home and in hospitals, women in rural areas. They bear the most brand of this neglect of the provision of water. They are forced to go to
Point of order, Chairperson.
And they get exposed to risk of criminality and abuse. There's not been an insignificant. There's not been a significant investment in water provision.
Honorable Shivambu, can you just wait? Honorable April, what is the point of order?
The point of order is it parliamentary to say that someone is telling lies? Can that word lies be withdrawn?
Yes, it is parliamentary, yes. It's parliamentary if they're telling lies.
No,
it's not parliamentary.
Honorable members, I'm chairing, I'm presiding. So I think the person who was asking, he wanted me to give guidance. I think there's no order in that. Can you continue, Honorable?
Thank you very much, House Chair. Also, we must understand what we making reference to Amilcar Cabral. Perhaps Amilcar Cabral is above the understanding. And Amilcar Cabral is correct to say that hide nothing from the masses of our people. Tell no lies, expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victories. The reality of the matter is that whatever can be said, even if you can stand on top of the Table Mountain, on top of any mountain of Kilimanjaro, to claim that you have brought water to our people do not have water. We interact with these people every day. They say, what are you doing about the crisis of water? And this is due to the failure of the ruling party. And the only solution is to take them decisively out of power and establish a socialist government of the EFF, which is going to
time is up, Honorable Shivambu.
We show them flames in Sundo's leadership.
That concludes the
Deputy
debate.
President of the EFF.
That concludes the debate, and we'll now move to the second item of this discussion. We shall now proceed to the last item on the order paper, which is a subject for discussion in the name of Honorable Z Nkomo on reviewing the economic position of women and measures to accelerate women's economic empowerment. Over to you, Honorable Nkomo.
Thank you so much, House Chairperson, and greetings to honorable members in the platform. House Chair, in 1994, the newly established democratic government inherited a deeply divided society marked by significant socio-economic disparities among racial groups. Beyond racial division, certain segments of the population faced additional exclusion and marginalization influenced by both patriarchy and the historical legacy of colonialism. Patriarchal structures exposed women to persistent challenges such as unemployment, compromised health, and limited education opportunities. These difficulties were further compounded by the lasting impact of colonial policies that perpetuated inequalities. The impetus for change originated from a commitment to policy change and the establishment of robust institutional framework aimed at addressing and redressing the challenges inherited from both patriarchy and colonialism. The success and growth of women in both their professional and personal lives are intricately linked, emphasizing the interconnected nature of the work and home environment. Rather than existing as separate spheres, these two facets of life should be viewed as mutually reinforcing. A workplace that acknowledges and supports the unique needs of women, promoting a balanced work-life environment, not only enhances individual well-being, but also contributes to a more inclusive and empowering professional landscape. Similarly, a positive home environment can can act as a catalyst for professional success, allowing women to navigate their careers with resilience and dedication. House Chair, there have been significant achievement in gender equity within civil matters, specifically in recognizing the full legal status of women under a customary law. Previously, in customary marriages, a Black woman was considered a minor with the husband acting as a guardian, a status that changed after the reappeal of the Black Administration Act. The customary marriage ensures equal status and capacity for women in such marriages. Despite this advancement, numerous women struggle to assert their basic right within the confines of traditional and family life. The vestiges of poverty predominantly were a feminine expression in South Africa. As women endure triple oppression, this oppression stems from being impoverished, Black and women, creating a unique intersectionality that compounds challenges. The enduring and triple burden of poverty, inequality, and unemployment disproportionately impact women compared to men. To realize women empowerment goals, secure employment becomes paramount, as it does not only provide job stability, but also equalizes economic opportunities between men and women. Previously reliant on male partners for resources, services, and assets, women from female-headed households may have shifted the role of providers onto the state. Furthermore, access to productive resources constitute a crucial step in the right direction, reducing women's dependency on potential abusive men, thereby impacting on gender-based violence. Recognizing the diverse need of women is essential, as women constitute a heterogeneous group with varied experiences. Specific vulnerability exists amongst women in rural areas and those with disabilities. Hence, it is crucial to re-evaluate the precision in targeting beneficiaries during social intervention to ensure real and impactful outcomes. House Chair, despite the importance of gender mainstreaming budgeting, it has not yet become a mainstream activities across various government departments. While some sectors of public finance have spoken to this initiative, actions in implementation have not been satisfactory. There is a great need for a more comprehensive and integrated approach to gender mainstreaming budgeting across all spheres of government expenditure to effectively address the diverse needs and challenges faced by women in society. Examining the period of 2004 to 2019, South Africa witnessed an increase in a proportion of parliamentary seats held by women, rising from 33.3% in 2004 to 46.0% in 2019. In the public sector, men predominantly occupy senior management position and middle management position. The composition of senior management position ranges from 58.4 in 2018 to 56.2 in 2021, while their female counterparts occupy 41.6 in 2018, slightly increased to 43.8 in 2021. In 2022, Stats SA reported that nearly half of South African women aged between 15 and 64 were economically inactive. The gender pay gap persists across industries, contributing to a higher poverty rate, especially among Black women who are more vulnerable to unemployment. Despite South African celebrated parliamentary gender representation, this achievement has not translated into meaningful transformation in various industries. In 2021, Women in Leadership census by the Business Women Association of SA revealed that women make 23.1% of vice chancellors' roles at higher education institutions, 40% of directorship at state-owned entities, 36.7% representative in the professional service industry, and only 26.9% of directorship position at JSE-listed entities. It is imperative for all industries to actively contribute to the advancement of women's empowerment. House Chair, recognizing the vital role rural women play in farming for survival, efforts should be directed at mainstreaming and elevating their standards to meet commercialization criteria, providing rural women with access to technology and financial resources for cooperative initiative can significantly enhance their capacity, leading to improvement in both quality standard and market participation. Deliberate social and labor plans with the mining sector should focus on empowering women to actively participate. This can be achieved by exposing women to essential expertise in the sector through scholarship, training programs, and empowerment initiative. The collaboration between the private and public sector and in procuring goods and services from women-led cooperatives further contribute to their economic empowerment. By ensuring inclusive practices across various industries, we can collectively work towards creating a society where women, especially those in rural areas, are technologically empowered and have equal opportunities for growth and participation in both formal and informal sector. The ANC acknowledges progress in promoting women economic participation, but emphasize the need to intensify efforts, particularly in empowering women in STEM field and addressing the specific needs of rural women and women with disabilities. Advocating for financial support in technology and agriculture, the ANC aims to modernize and commercialize activities. Creating a conducive private sector environment is crucial for women advancement into leadership roles. Moreover, the ANC urges increased government investment beyond policy of mainstreaming women's issues, emphasizing allocation of resources to actively integrate women's concern into various sectors for meaningful and sustainable progress in gender equality. Collaboration between the private sector is emphasized to achieve effective women empowerment. I thank you, House Chair.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Honorable Sharif from the DA.
Thank you very much, House Chair. The economic position of women in this country has been stifled due to the lack of opportunities and economic participation that is available to lift women out of poverty and provide a life of dignity. That is the bottom line. There are no real viable opportunities provided to women in this country, and there are no plans besides the use of quotas and hoping for the best. The ANC government does not have any plan to create an environment for jobs and access to the economy. If the ANC was serious about the economic empowerment of women, then they would have prioritized legislation like the Women's Empowerment and Gender Equality Bill. This bill was put on the back foot by the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities by claiming capacity constraints and that they can only focus on one or two bills. This is pathetic for a 5-year term. And the two bills, the department
I'm not sure whether it is me or the speaker who is...
It's the speaker, Chair, because
We
we are
can
here.
hear you with the speaker.
Yeah, because of load shedding.
access to the
There's load
economy
shedding.
and putting food on the table.
Oh,
The
let's allow
obstacles
it.
women face is simply too much to bear. Chair, can I continue?
Continue, please. Continue.
The inequality as well as
Chair,
disproportionate.
can you advise the speaker to switch off the video?
Yeah, that's the advice, Honorable Sharif. Can you switch off your video?
No problem, Chair. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Continue.
Thank you. Chair, the inequality of opportunity and the difference in salaries, as well as disproportionately having to shoulder childcare responsibilities, puts added pressure onto women that limit their opportunities to have a job and earn money. The need to look after families from a young age and the lack of opportunities to grow in their chosen careers because of patriarchy and gender stereotypes are barriers that must be addressed. The DA's economic justice policy articles and has crafted policy to reduce these barriers in order to make it easier for women to access opportunities and get jobs. You cannot seek to improve economic participation of women without dealing with these issues. By increasing access to education, increasing access to social grants, through encouraging the private sector to invest more and create good quality jobs, to provide basic services and to put a stop to race-based quotas and cadre deployment. These are the answers to the question posed today. The DA is the only viable government is the only viable option to take over government in 2024. The DA has a plan, and it is a plan that we have proven has and will work. Chair, if we are to talk on measures to accelerate women's economic empowerment, then we must talk about how hard it is for women to find a job compared to men, and that women earn less than men do. Approximately for every rand a man makes in South Africa, a woman makes 69 cents in median hourly wages. The inequality and gender pay gap continue to leave women behind. Doing the same job and getting less pay is dehumanizing. Women only occupy 22.9% of senior positions and 7% of executive director positions on boards. This will not be fixed by quotas, but rather through a holistic approach to open and create spaces for women by providing an equal footing to compete for top jobs based on competency, skills, and talent. Women tend to shoulder the majority of childcare responsibilities in homes, and this skewed societal and legal weighing remains a gender inequality issue that must be addressed. A study done by the Social Research Foundation found that the responsibility of single parenting falls upon women far more in comparison to men. Raising children as a single mother is hard enough. The rising cost of living is making it even more difficult to put food on the table, while load shedding disrupts our lives every day. The rising crime stats and constant violence women face, and the lack of trust in state entities and institutions deny women of justice. This government continues to burden this country with no shame and will come here and talk about themselves as caring. While I beg to differ, they are the reason we are in this mess, and we must hold the ANC accountable. We cannot allow for gender and parental responsibilities to limit the potential of women in the advancement of their chosen careers or the quality of their lives. In order for this to change, as women, we must use the power of our vote and make a concerted effort to unite and rally behind the only party with a proven track record in creating jobs. The DA has shown that with our policies, we are able to provide opportunities for jobs. We are able to make society safer, and we are able to rescue South Africa. We do not need to accept the carelessness and disregard from this ANC government. Do not forget your power as women and the power to determine the direction of this country. This is our chance.
Thank you very much. Can we now move to the next speaker, EFF?
Chairperson, the plight of women in South Africa is well documented, and it stands as a symbol of how little has changed since our first democratic elections 29 years ago. In almost 3 decades since the attainment of political freedom in South Africa, the position of women in our country has not changed in any fundamental manner. Socially, economically, politically, and culturally, women are more often at the receiving end of the most brutal forms of oppression as gender equality changes persist. Despite there being institutions in place which are mandated by the Constitution to achieve gender parity, we know this to be true as women. Black women in particular remain invisible and often stand as a mere tokens, participating on the margins of the economy. Women still face underrepresentation and gender discrimination, with gender representation remaining a mammoth task which government has yet to overcome. Earlier this year, the Global Gender Gap Report, which tracks global progress towards gender equity, ranked South Africa 20th out of 146 countries, with African countries Namibia and Rwanda ranking ahead at number 8 and number 12. It is also worth noting that in the year 2006, South Africa ranked 18th of that same report, showing that for the past 17 years, there has been no improvement in gender parity rank in the country, while other more progressive countries such as Namibia have improved their rank significantly from being number 38 in 2006 to being number 8 in 2003. Under the leadership of the ruling party, women's economic empowerment remains unfinished business, with women still being more likely than men to live in poverty. Chairperson, allow me to outline some of the facts of that unfinished business that should be of particular concern to all of us. The unemployment rate for women in this country is higher than the national average, with 35.7% of women currently without work and actively looking for work. Women are more likely to be unemployed than men in South Africa, with Black women faring far worse with an unemployment rate of 39.8%, which is higher than the national average and higher than that of other population groups. More women than men work in vulnerable, low-paid or undervalued jobs in this country. Women remain overrepresented as contributing family workers and informal workers. Women are still mainly found clustered in lower-paying jobs, such as serving as caregivers in education, whilst men dominate higher paying sectors like technology and finance. We all know that employment is the most effective economic empowerment strategy for women. Yet gender inequalities in the labor markets persist. The gap in salary earning between women and men continue to widen, and women continue to be underrepresented in certain industries and occupations, with Black women continuing to endure double oppression and more economic exclusion than any other race. Economic empowerment of women matters, Chairperson. It matters in that it increases women's access to economic resources and opportunities, including jobs, property, and skill development. It is fundamental to strengthening women's rights and enabling women to have control over their lives and extend influence in society. As economic freedom fighters, we have on various occasions consistently called for more opportunities for women and women-led initiatives. Women contribute to the country's economic and social well-being. Their employment is therefore vital, and as it enhances the quality of life, not only of the individual, but of society as a whole. Therefore, more needs to be done in investing in women empowerment. There also need to be more representation and economic participation of women in all sectors, both public and private. Closing the gender gap is therefore an effective strategy to promote growth. More needs to be done in changing the mindset of men and changing cultural practices where gender stereotypes and patriarchy are still deeply embedded, as these are the factors that hinder progress. Existing policies have to be amended or implemented correctly so women can contribute equally to the economic growth and capacity building in the country. For closing the gender gap is a human rights issue, and there can be no economic freedom for women to speak of it. It is this gap still exists. There will be no gender gap closure. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is from the IFP.
Chairperson, it was
Thank you, Chairperson.
Oh.
Yes,
thank you, Chairperson. Yes, Honorable Chair, the realization of women's rights will remain out of our reach for as long as we do not champion the meaningful economic participation and contribution of women. The IFP notes with the concern that almost 30 years into democracy, women are still underrepresented in South African economy. While we appreciate that our world-class constitution is often praised of is inclusion of women and the equality it seeks to provide women, we remain concerned that our policy objective will remain nothing but a pipeline dream if we do not anchor our human ability to participate equality in existing markets, much to determine of the society. It is the IFP who contribute to the women for the last way in KZN. All the principal of women, they promote women to become inspectors of school, to become principals of school. The IFP recognize women. Ilokho esikushoyo njenge-IFP, i-IFP ayikazi babukele phansi abantu besifazane, yabapromota ngokwemisebenzi yawo. If we do not prioritize women access to and control over productive resources, access to employment, as well as increase agency and contribution to economic decision-making, we will forever remain a nation that is persistent in sidelining and marginalize its biggest possible economic players, women. Honorable Chair, women economic empowerment remains central to the realization of women's rights and gender equality. Despite this, department entities that have been entrusted with safeguarding and advancing the interests of women continues to labor in futility and at best. They provide fertile ground for women to be paradised and placeholder meant to simply fill quotas. Despite the fact that women of working age account for more than 46% of the labor force in the country and contribute almost 50% of the nation's GDP, there are still societal and economic imbalance in the favor of men. The task of bridging the gender party gaps remains enormous, and women are still being overlooked for managerial and senior officials. Siyanxusa ukuthi abantu besifazane ba-capable ukwenza izinto, ake banikezwe amathuba nakulo hulumeni baphathe. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Honorable Briet from the FF Plus.
Thank you, House Chairperson. House Chairperson, Toni Morrison said when speaking about women, freeing yourself was one thing, claiming ownership of that freed self was another. And that to me is the crux of why we are always talking about women's empowerment and not seeing measurable steps in true women's empowerment. Women have not taken ownership of their freed selves, and in particular in South Africa, we try and correct this by adding quotas to everything instead of focusing on what needs to be done to truly empower women to a level that they can competitively compete with men. When looking at the stats, it is quite dismal. Stats SA found, and I quote, globally, women who are looking for work and are available to work have a tougher time finding work than men. This phenomenon is more pronounced in South Africa, with higher unemployment rates for the general population as compared to the rest of the world. In 2022, 47% of South African women recorded as economically inactive. This means that almost half of the working age women in South Africa are out of the labor force compared to 35% of their male counterparts. The latest global labor force participation rate for women is about 47% compared to 72% for men. The productive potential of South African women in the labor market remains unused. In a research article, Access to Finance, Why Aren't Women Leaning In?, Hannon Morsi, the director of the Macroeconomic Policy and Research Department at the African Development Bank, found that worldwide women's access to finance is disproportionately low. In sub-Saharan Africa, only 37% of women have a bank account, compared with 48% of men, a gap that has only widened over the past several years. Morsi states that these striking figures raise urgent questions for decision makers in Africa. Questions such as, what continues to fuel gender disparity in access to finance across the continent? And why, despite all efforts, is the gap even wider today than a decade ago? All is not lost, however. The stats also speak to what women have to offer. UN Women have found that when more women work, economies grow. Women's economic empowerment boosts productivity, increases economic diversification and income equality, in addition to other positive development outcomes. Increasing women's and girls' educational attainment contributes to women's economic empowerment and more inclusive economic growth. Education, upskilling, and reskilling over the life course, especially to keep pace with rapid technological and digital transformations affecting jobs, are critical for women's and girls' health and well-being, as well as the income generation opportunities and participation in the formal labor market. Increased educational attainment accounts for about 50% of economic growth in OECD countries over the past 50 years. Women's economic equality is good for business. Companies greatly benefit from increasing employment and leadership opportunities for women, which is shown to increase organizational effectiveness and growth. With this in mind, it is important to note that true empowerment is not putting ill-equipped women into power for the sake of equality. This does more harm than good. It is important that we as a country start focusing on our girl children from a young age. This is the only way we will attain true empowerment and equality in the labor force. We need to ensure that our girl children attend school and that barriers like insufficient sanitary products, transport, the lack of mother tongue education, and so forth do not hamper them from attending school and excelling. But this can only happen if we as women start enforcing this. We as women need to take a stance against quotas and focus on true empowerment from a young age. To quote Beyonce, we need to reshape our own perception of how we view ourselves. We have to step up as women and take the lead. I thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Honorable Pillay from the ANC.
Honorable Chairperson, members of the Executive, members of the Legislature, women of our nation, Watinta Bafas, compatriots. The 1954 Women's Charter called for a single society that recognizes that women do not form a society separate from the men, and therefore share in the problems and anxieties of our men, and join hands with them to remove social evils and obstacles to progress. The Women's Charter was adopted a year before the historic Freedom Charter of 1955, which is the blueprint of our internationally acclaimed constitution and democratic order. The 1954 Charter was further reviewed in 1994 under the Women's National Coalition, which adopted the Women's Charter for Effective Equality. Both charters call for a society where women are free from discrimination and prejudice. They called for a society which respects women and enforces their rights and inherent human dignity. Racial discrimination during the colonial and apartheid era profoundly shaped the South African society and resulted in rampant inequalities. Women face an additional burden of discrimination purely on the basis of gender. Chairperson, our democratic breakthrough in 1994 represented the beginning of our journey to an inclusive society that cares for all. Successive democratic administrations have committed to a progressive legislative framework and a human rights agenda that is strongly informed by the principles of gender equality, women's emancipation, and empowerment. Guided by the ethos of our Constitution, the three arms of state have demonstrated efforts in building a non-racial, non-sexist, and united nation and promoting a human rights culture. Tomorrow marks the start of our 16 days of activism and no violence against women and children. The 25th of November to the 10th of December, under the theme, Accelerating Actions to End Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, Leaving No One Behind. We promote 365 days of activism. Indeed, Chairperson, this is an appropriate time for the House to engage in such a debate. Section 9, subsection 2 of the final constitution provides that legislative and other measures may be taken up by the state to advance persons or groups of persons who have previously been disadvantaged by unfair discrimination. Since 1994, this parliament has passed progressive pieces of legislation aimed at creating a more equal and just society and advancing the position of women. And these examples include the Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act, PEPUDA, Equality Act, Domestic Violence Act, Divorce Act, the Criminal Law, Sexual Offences and Related Matters Amendment Act, and Labor Relations Act. Last week, this August House passed the Divorce Amendment Bill, which is as a result of a Constitutional Court judgment in the case of Women's Legal Center Trust versus the President of the Republic of South Africa and others. The court recognized the need for an importance of protecting Muslim women and in children of Muslim marriages, particularly upon the dissolution of a Muslim marriage. The court recognized that the non-recognition of Muslim marriages in civil law has the effect that a person married in terms of Islamic law only has no right to approach a court of law for a decree or divorce. I must note that the DHA has started the process of an omnibus, which is the marriage bill, and it must also be noted that Muslim marriages, which is referred to as nikah, can now be registered at DHA offices. In addition, a number of institutions were established to give effect to Chapter 9 of the Constitution and to support democracy, including the Commission on Gender Equality and the South African Human Rights Commission. We have also seen the establishment of the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disability within the presidency. Within Parliament, as early as 2008, a multi-party women's caucus was established to provide a platform for women across political parties to raise matters as they relate to women in the activities undertaken by Parliament, to influence discussions on issues affecting women, and to act in an advisory capacity in some instances. In this democratic dispensation, the number of women members of Parliament has increased significantly. According to the Inter-Parliamentary Union, 45.86% of MPs in the South African Parliament are women, and 35.29% of all MPs are under the age of 45. Let me be so boldly to say, House Chair, that the African National Congress contributes significantly to these figures, as we have taken a firm decision to ensure that women leaders are represented in the National Assembly in numbers. Chairperson, it is well documented that the commencement of the new constitutional democracy in 1994, the bench comprised of 165 judges, of which 160 were white men, 3 black men, 2 white women, and no black woman. Racial and gender discrimination were deliberately used to oppress women and keep them away from a profession previously reserved for men. Women were not considered to be persons enough to practice law. Legal means were used to advance patriarchy and oppression. This year, the nation commemorated 100 years of women in the legal profession. While the profession has been in existence for centuries, it was only in 1923 that women in South Africa could enter the noble profession. Women have contributed significantly to the body of law and jurisprudence. Our Deputy Chief Justice Mandisa Maya is one such example. Her ascendancy to the highest echelons of the judiciary is not only an indication of an illustrator's judicial career, but inspires hope and also serves as a reminder to every woman that women are more than just capable. A notable example is her dissenting minority judgment in the Minister of Safety and Security versus F in the SCA. The matter involved a claim for damages arising from the rape of a woman by an off-duty policeman. The majority of the court held that the minister was not liable as the policeman was not on duty at the time of the rape. In her minority judgment, she focused on the constitutional role entrusted to the police and the responsibility of police officers to conduct themselves properly to foster the community's trust in this situation. The Constitutional Court upheld Justice Meyer's judgment in F versus Minister of Safety and Security. Chairperson, we know that violence against women, rape, murder, and other physical and verbal and psychological evils that women experience daily mean that we should strive to ensure that a safer, caring society includes a concerted focus on women's safety and protection. With our democratic dispensation, strong institutions have been created and led by legally trained women. Within the justice family, a unit that would specialize in dealing with gender-based violence, sexual and other offenses, known as the Sexual Offences and Community Affairs SOCA unit, was set up. Sexual Offences Court were established to ensure, among others, the institutionalization of prosecutor-led investigations in cases of gender-based violence and violence against children, as well as the coordination of service for an efficient and responsive criminal justice system. The SOCA unit developed and introduced the Tutuzela Care Center model as an integrated multidisciplinary model, which is a victim-centered with prosecutor-guided investigations. To date, we have TCCs across the country, and through them, secondary trauma to victims of sexual offenses has also been reduced significantly. We remember that our President Ramaphosa expressed the country's commitment to addressing the scourge of GBVF and announced the emergency response plan to address GBVF, which includes strengthening the applicable legislative framework. As the legislative arm of the state, we were seized with the duty to create laws to this effect. Parliament considered and passed what is commonly referred to as the 3 bills on gender-based violence. 3 pieces of legislation are the Criminal and Related Matters Act, Domestic Violence Amendment Act, and the Criminal Law, Sexual Offences and Related Matters Amendment. Chairperson, in this democratic dispensation, we have seen the rise of women to the highest echelons of power. In the public service, we continue to see progressive change for women. Even in the private sector, we have women as business executives. While there is a record of many notable successes in improving the status of women, it would be disingenuous of us to pretend that we have achieved everything. Studies show that in South Africa, women remain underrepresented in the area of permanent academic staff as they comprise approximately 43% in public higher education institutions. This inequality becomes even more pronounced at senior academic positions, where women account for approximately 18.5% women professors and 29.8% as associate professors. This is despite the fact that women professors tend to have strong publication records and high qualifications. This gap also manifests itself in the salaries that women receive compared to their male counterparts. The issue of unequal pay is not limited to the higher education sector only. We welcome policies such as broad-based Black economic empowerment. They are necessary for transformation. We have seen the acquisition of South Africa's liquid bulk fuels import terminal by a Black female-owned subsidiary. This is a key milestone in the energy sector's transformation journey. Chairperson, as legislators, it is important that we continue making laws to correct the legacy of patriarchy, which dilapidates women's self-actualization. If the economy is not growing, the gender gap will widen. Chair, the recent census results once more confirmed that we have a greater female population than male in the country. The weekend that has passed again revealed that a greater number of women have again registered to vote. Women continue to take the lead in society and indeed show a greater interest in the affairs of our country and its democracy. We owe it to the women of our nation to make them our priority. And let me end with the words of our former president, Thabo Mbeki. No government in South Africa could ever claim to represent the will of the people if it failed to address the central of emancipation of women in all its elements. That includes the government we are privileged to lead. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is UDM, ATM, good, AIC, next is ANC, Honorable Mbushe. Over to you.
Thank you, House Chair. May you please allow me to switch off my video? Honorable House Chair, Honorable Ministers, President and Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members, fellow South African, allow me to greet you in the glorious and mighty name of the African National Congress. It gives me great pleasure to participate in this debate. Honorable Members, Honorable Sihlalo, ndivumele ndikhahlele ndinike isidima kumanina omzabalazo wenkululeko wona athilize asivulela indlela kunamhlanje nje sikwazi ukuba we are able to have this much women representation in parliament in this house. Ndithetha ngamaqhawekazi oomama Charlotte Maxeke, uLillian Ngoyi, Albertina Sisulu, Mama Helen Suzman, Ruth First, Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, to mention but just a few. While we believe that we can do better than the 46% of women representation, this is a noteworthy milestone which reflects a gradual increase over the years from 30% in 2000 since the inception of the democratic government in 1994. The Reconstruction and Development Program directs that focus should be on ensuring a full and equal role for women in every aspect of the economy and society. Further, it states that, I quote, "We must unlock boundless energies and creativity suppressed by racism and discrimination," close quote. Let us all be encouraged by the Parliament of Rwanda, which is the first country in the world with female majority in parliament at 61.3%. Indeed, women belong in the struggle. Women belong in offices of power and authority. Women belong in the boardroom. We currently have the first female Auditor General who is recently elected as the external auditor of UNESCO and has, with her team, successfully recovered some of the financial losses identified in the Zondo Commission. Those who are howling Amasela will never fight corruption. Asoze balunge. Where were you when the structuring of the economy was based on the capitalist regime of economic exploitation and systemic underdevelopment, driven by an oppressive domestic ruling class and its external imperialist superiors? Honorable House Chair, Honorable President Dada Rolihlahla Mandela, when delivering his speech to the Women's Day speech in 1996, has this to say, open quote, "The legacy of oppression weighs heavily on women. As long as women are bound by poverty and as long as they are looked down upon, human rights will lack substance. As long as outmoded ways of thinking prevent women from making a meaningful contribution to society, progress will be slow. And as long as the nation refuses to acknowledge the equal role of more than half of itself, it is doomed to failure," close quote. It is against this backdrop that the ANC has always advocated for women emancipation, and as the oldest liberation movement, which at least, though lost as she is, Honorable Kgalube acknowledges, we are the only organization to date that has endorsed a 50-50 gender representation policy. ANC-led government has made great strides in developing the legislative framework and implementing programs to facilitate women's active and full participation in all social, economic, and political spheres. At the center of these efforts is our progressive constitution, which provides for equality of all persons, coupled with policies such as that on the 40% public procurement for women-owned business, amongst others. Honorable Chairperson, we remain concerned that while government is making strides towards the inclusivity and empowerment of women, the private sector seems to be lagging behind. In the recent 2021 study of the Commission for Employment Equity, only 24% of women were in leadership position in private sector. And according to a PwC 2019 report, women constitute only 3.3% of chief executive of JSE-listed companies, while female professionals increased from 45.9% in 2008 to 51.1% in 2020. Women in managerial roles grew by only 1.8% since 2008 to 31.6% in 2020. A hearing conducted by the Commission for Gender Equality in 2022-23 at the ArcelorMittal revealed that the company had no female representation at the top management level, and at all other levels throughout the organization, the representation was low, sitting only at 12%. This is an indication of how most companies within the private sector are reluctant to change and transformation. This is no way representative of the demographics of our country and derails our transformation agenda. Evident in South Africa, men are more likely to be in paid employment than women, while women are more likely than men to be doing work, unpaid work. The proportion of men employed is higher than that of women. Therefore, the unemployment rate among men is lower compared to that of women. In an attempt to make ends meet, in order to support themselves, their families, many women end up in informal sector. This pace of course comes with its own challenges and disparities. Many informal economy workers work under very unfavorable conditions with no proper infrastructure and are situated in township and rural parts of our country, with a population of around 17 million to 20 respectively, and women form the majority. This gives impetus to the urgent need for financial and non-financial support for these women-owned businesses, not only to foster inclusivity, but to help them formalize and grow these businesses so as to create opportunities for the others and better their livelihoods. It has been proven that when women have income and assets, this contributes to increased productivity and national development. It also leads to better human development and poverty reduction outcomes, as women's control over assets and income is linked to improvement in family welfare and child nutrition. Yay! More support from both the public and private sector needs to be targeted at women in SMMEs, the informal sector, and low-skilled jobs. We take pride in that Stats SA reports indicates the contribution of SMMEs to total business turnover in South Africa is growing. The ANC welcomed the recent statement made by the President, that is Cyril Ramaphosa, at the second presidential SMME and Cooperative Awards on the 17th of November 2023, to quote but a few. Focusing on SMMEs and cooperatives can trigger growth, create jobs, and build a more inclusive economy. Furthermore, he has tasked the Red Tape Reduction Unit, which has been established in the President, to work with the Minister of Small Business Development, Science and Innovation, and Finance to resolve the regulatory burdens. And to focus on the National Small Enterprise Development Strategic Framework to address market concentration and enable market access, especially for SMMEs owned by women, youth, and other underserved communities. And he applauded the Competition Commission, which has done excellent work in identifying and addressing anti-competitive behavior and collusive practices in the private sector. And the recent work done in the retail sector, which has resulted in shopping malls phasing out exclusivity agreements. And he also mentioned the fact that they have tilted state procurement to benefit SMMEs, especially those from these designated groups. We have also had success in opening private sector supply chains through our enterprise supplier development programs, but more needs to be done to open these opportunities for township and rural enterprises. We also welcome the recent developments of converting the Post Bank into a fully fledged state bank that is going to take into cognizance the needs of previously disadvantaged, marginalized in society. Equally, the establishment of a cooperative bank which is going to assist women, youth, and persons with disabilities owned businesses who bear the brunt of exclusion by commercial banks will empower our women. Equally, more needs to be done to ensure women gain access to education, lifelong learning, and skills development will go a long way in addressing the relatively low levels of formal education and business literacy amongst women in the informal sector and various other low sectors. We are encouraged to see that our government is amplifying its efforts and leading the way in investing in the girl child to women of this country. Out of 1.3 million students that have been funded by NEFSAS this year, 64% of them are females. We continue to advocate for gender-based budgeting and financing in both public and private sector. Gender-responsive budgeting refers to the allocation of financial resources in a manner that is equally responsive to the needs and interests of women and men, in which will ensure that each gender benefits equitably from services delivered through the use of resources. It is said that each one according to his needs, each one according to his ability. ACDP will know better. A gender-responsive budget takes into account material differences and deploys resources in a manner that accommodates those differences, thereby allowing for a more gender-balanced distribution of resources. Honorable House Chair, it is important to note that the 17 Sustainable Development Goals recognize that action in one area will affect outcomes in others, and that development must balance social, economic, and environmental sustainability. Hence, SDG 5 provides for the achievement of gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls, and seeks to end all forms of discrimination against all women and girls worldwide. It provides for the adoption of strengthening and of sound policies and enforceable legislation for the promotion of gender equality and empowerment of women and girls at all levels. As a country with a world-renowned constitution that works for the greater good of the people of South Africa, should take center stage in leading transformation agenda. Honorable House Chair, allow me to share this quote from Josimate. The sun burns us with the same light that warms us. The sun has spots. The ungrateful only talks about the spots. The grateful talk about the light, masquerading as their messiah while doing nothing to change their lives except to howl and use them as voting council.
Honorable Bush, time is up.
I thank you. I thank you, Panditelu Sharisha, this thing that our people.
Your time is up. You will share it next time.
That has been released and will continue to be released.
Please.
Honorable
Mpushe, your time is up. The next speaker would be from COPE, PAC, from the DA, Honorable Opperman.
In 1908, 'n eeu gelede reeds, het vroue vir die eerste keer protesteer vir beter werksomstandighede. Meer as 100 jaar later is byna die helfte van Suid-Afrikaanse vroue ekonomies onaktief. Volgens die nuutste data van Statistiek Suid-Afrika, sukkel 47% van ons land se vroue wie kan werk om werk te kry. Suid-Afrika is die mees ongelyke land ter wêreld en hierdie ongelykheid is grotendeels geslagsgebaseerd. Die bevoordeling van mans bo vroue in die arbeidsmark het sedert 2012 onder die ANC-regering toenemend hoog gebly. Swart vroue in besonder word die ergste geraak deur hierdie tendens. Die werkloosheidskoers vir vroue bly die afgelope 10 jaar al bo die nasionale gemiddelde. In Suid-Afrika het vroue die laagste indiensnemingskoers en 'n aansienlike gaping wat by berekening eers oor 18 jaar ingehaal sal word, bestaan tussen mans en vroue. In hierdie land moet 'n vrou maar tevrede wees met kwesbare werke, waar lae lone, lae produktiwiteit, swak werkomstandighede en swak bevorderingsvooruitsigte die norm is. As vroue is ons meestal beperk tot klerkskappe, verkope, versorging en huishoudelike werk. Elke jaar in Augustus herdenk ons die geveg vir geslagsgelykheid, terwyl diskriminasie teen vroue in die arbeidsmark onverpoos voortduur. Volgens die nuutste Wêreldekonomiese Forum globale geslagsgaping verslag, verdien vroue tussen 23 en 35% minder as mans vir dieselfde werk. Statistiek Suid-Afrika bereken hierdie gaping in vergoeding op 30% dwars deur die bank. Alhoewel vroue 51% van hierdie land se bevolking uitmaak, is daar geen spesifieke doelwitte vir vroue in die nasionale ontwikkelingsplan nie. Maar eerder as om vingers te wys na die onbevoegde ANC-regering, sal die DA met voorstelle en oplossings vorendag kom. Wat ons benodig is meer wetgewende hervorming, gefokus op die bemagtiging van veral vroue in landelike gebiede. Ons benodig opvoeding in sake geslagsgelykheid en geslagstransformasie en jaarlikse geslagsaudits. Our budgets should be a tool for the economic transformation of women. We need to constantly measure the progress of the Women's Charter. The Departments of Health, Social Development and Education, who get almost 80% of the allocation, needs development plans that speak directly to women's empowerment. These plans must prioritize gender transformation so women at ground level can start to reap the benefits. We should institutionalize gender reporting and interrogate the strategic plans of each department, continuously asking where the women's issues on each agenda are. We need to completely reform how data is reported to Parliament. Gender mainstreaming should always be part of our oversight and a standing item on Parliament's agenda to ensure constant monitoring and evaluation. Ons verneem maar van die bevordering van vroueregte wetgewing wat in die toekoms ter tafel gelê sal word. Ons verneem maar van die minister van Kokta se private wetsontwerp wat die gaping in salarisse tussen mans en vroue sal bekamp. Maar hierdie termyn loop op 'n snelle pas afdraand en die vraag weer galm. Wanneer? Dankie.
Very much. The last speaker on the debate is Honorable Nkomo from the ANC.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. And also thank you to honorable members for taking part in this crucial debate. However, House Chair, as the ANC, we acknowledge that we have done so much and there's still more that needs to be done in terms of women emancipation. House Chair, numerous progressive policy development have been implemented, aligning with international best practices. Despite this effort, effectively translating legislative aspect into actions to reach a minimum level of equity has proven challenging. There is still considerable room for improvement, and certain areas requires attention to ensure a more comprehensive and impactful intervention towards gender equity in South Africa. The ANC-led government has laid the foundation for promoting gender equality and women's empowerment in South Africa by establishing a robust institution with a comprehensive framework. In 1997, the Office of the Status of Women was created within the presidency, initially tasked with formulating a national gender policy framework. In 1997, Parliament passed legislation to create the Commission on Gender Equity, CGE, as Chapter 9 institution mandated by the Constitution. Governed by the Commission on Gender Equity Act in 1996, The CGE is tasked with monitoring, evaluating, research, and investigating complaints related to gender equality. In 2009, there was a significant restructuring leading to the creation of the Ministry of Women, Children, and Persons with Disability, later renamed the Ministry of Women and Youth and Persons with Disability. This underscores the ANC's government commitment to mainstreaming women's issues and prioritizing the socio-economic inclusion. These institutions have resulted in notable progress with increased representation of women in key spaces such as legislature and executive roles. However, the impact of these changes needs to extend to further into society. While there's been a rise in the enrollment of young women in university degrees, it is imperative that their presence is also reflected in high-ranking positions within both the public and the private sector, ensuring that they do not go unnoticed and overlooked. In 2022, 2020 National Status Report on Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment revealed concerning trends in national economic empowerment, particularly highlighting the continued underrepresentation of women in crucial areas such as management, control, and ownership. Despite women holding 50% or more shareholding, their presence on company boards where significant decisions are made remains disproportionately low. A survey by the Commission of Gender Equality focusing on 103 listed companies on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange revealed that only 2 African female held non-executive positions, indicating substantial gender disparity. The report emphasizes the need for the private sector to recognize its role in promoting women's empowerment and gender equality. Between 2020 and 2022, there was economic stagnation, particularly evident in the lack of progress in Black women's ownership, which remained at the 14% mark. This sluggish advancement calls for proactive measures. The BBBEE Commission and the Commission of Gender Equity are urged to lead by actively enforcing President Ramaphosa's 40% set-aside mandate across government agencies, provincial government, and municipalities. The BBBEE Commission should improve its efficiency in inspection and compliance reporting, reducing reliance on consulting agencies vulnerable to commercial influences. The emphasis is on enforceability required institutions which substantiate impact capabilities. In conclusion, Chair, gender-responsive budgeting can be initiated by purposefully procuring goods and services from women, especially Black women, ensuring the realization of the President's 40% directive. Essential to this process is reinforcing the legal authority of the BBBEE Commission, aligning it with the determined approach seen in the Competence Commission. The ANC-led government is the only government that cares and continues to advocate for women emancipation. Our people must continue to believe in the ANC for better life for all. Our communities must come out in their numbers in the next election and vote for the ANC like they did in Umsundus. I thank you, House Chair.
Thank you very much. That concludes the debate and the business of this mini-plenary session. The mini-plenary will now rise. Thank you very much for participating.
Thank you, Chair. Nkosi Tigana. Long live the Chair. Long live the Chair. Cancer Chairperson.
Siyabonga, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair.
Long live the Chair.